The alien princess let out a choked sob as her last hope of rescue faded. She was alone now, abandoned in the depths of the Zorgath fortress, her fate sealed. Until one human refused to let her die. Panic and desperation surged through the Galactic Council chamber. Representatives from dozens of alien species shouted over each other, all terrified by the news. The Nigean ambassador, tall and slender with light blue skin, stood and the room fell silent. "The Zorgath struck our homeworld," he said, voice shaking with emotion. "They decimated our fleet and they took Princess Fenris. We have no one left who can save her." Dismayed chatter filled the air. Many averted their eyes, unwilling to face the horrible reality. They all knew a rescue was impossible. The Zorgath were too powerful. Their fortress was impenetrable. The princess was lost. "We'll do it," a gruff voice cut through the hopeless murmurs. Heads turned in shock to the human ambassador. Gary Powell rose to his feet, square-jawed and resolute. His eyes flashed with fierce determination. "The Terran Special Forces will bring your princess back," he declared. "Just give us the intel you have. We'll handle the rest." The Nigian ambassador stared at him in disbelief. "The Zorgath have never been beaten. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. How can you possibly succeed where our greatest warriors failed?" A smirk tugged at Gary's mouth. "Because we're human, doing the impossible is what we do best." He strode out of the chamber, mind already racing with plans, leaving the council buzzing with a tentative new hope. The galaxy had abandoned Princess Fenris to her fate. But humanity would not. The Terran Special Forces would bring her back, or die trying. The Zorgath were about to learn what it meant to stand against the full might of Earth. As soon as Gary exited the council chamber, he was already radioing his team. "Ripper, Ghost, Tech. Meet me at the hangar bay in 20, full combat loadout, princess extraction, hostile territory, no backup." He fired off the terse orders with practiced efficiency. 20 minutes later, the hangar doors hissed open as Gary strode in. His hand-picked squad was already waiting, checking weapons and gear with the ease of long familiarity. Jack Ripper Morgan, broad-shouldered and heavily muscled, was inspecting a wicked-looking combat knife. He was the team's close-quarters specialist, a master of brutal, efficient violence. Luis Ghost Ramirez, lean and wiry, was adjusting the advanced stealth suit that let him infiltrate even the most heavily guarded facilities. His skills in covert ops were unmatched. Akira Tech Tanaka had her nose buried in a tactical pad, lines of code flashing across the screen. The brilliant hacker could slice through any firewall and disrupt any security system. "All right, men, listen up," Gary barked as he reached the sleek black shape of the USS Shadowblade. "Here's what we're up against." He tapped a command, and a holographic projection of a massive fortress shimmered to life. Bristling with gun emplacements and ringed by crackling energy shields, it looked utterly impregnable. "This is the Zorgath stronghold on Xandar Prime. Princess Fenris is being held somewhere inside. The Zorgath have the most advanced defense tech in the galaxy, automated turrets, force fields, hunter-killer drones, the works. They think they're untouchable." Gary's eyes glinted with anticipation as he met the gazes of his team. "But they never planned on facing us. We're gonna hit them hard and fast, and show them what human ingenuity can do. Tech, you're up first. Slice into their systems, disable what you can, and create one hell of a diversion." Akira nodded, fingers already flying over her pad. "They won't know what hit their network, boss." "Ghost, your infiltration. Get inside any way you can and kill their internal sensors and surveillance. Go dark and stay dark. No one sees you. No one knows you're there until it's too late." Luis gave a predatory smile. "They'll never even know I was in the room." "Ripper, you and I are the sledgehammer. Once Ghost and Tech create an opening, we go in hard and loud. Carve a path to the princess, retrieve her, and blast our way out. How's that sound?" Jack chuckled darkly, sheathing his knife. "Sounds like a good time, boss. Let's go kick some alien ass and save us a princess." "Damn right we will." Gary hit the controls and the Shadowblade's ramp lowered with a hiss. Mount up and strap in. We're going in hot and coming out the other side victorious. Get ready to show the Zorgath what it means to fuck with humanity." Locked, loaded, and united by grim resolve, the team strapped into the dropship. The hangar doors opened, the USS Shadowblade's engines flared, and the Special Forces soldiers shot into the cold void of space, racing toward Xandar Prime and a date with destiny. Xandar Prime loomed ahead, a dark fortress slicing through the stars. The Shadowblade tore through space toward the stronghold, Tech hunched over his console, his fingers a blur over the controls. A grin lit up his face as he hacked the Zorgath's defense grid. Sirens wailed, lights flashed, the system spasmed. Chaos erupted behind the walls. Ghost double-checked his gear as he waited by the airlock. Knives, explosives, grapples. The cloaked drop pod lay ready. He stepped inside, strapping in just as the defense grid buckled. The hatch blew, and Ghost pod shot out into the void. It arced toward the station, engines silent, hull obscured. He sliced through the armored plating and dropped to the hull. Alloy parted beneath his fusion torch, and Ghost slipped into the vents, unseen. In the armory, Gary and Ripper moved with the efficiency of long practice. Plasma rifles hummed as power cells locked in. Frag grenades clicked onto belts. Ripper sheathed his wicked combat knife and racked the slide on an auto shotgun. Gary secured shaped breaching charges and slung a bandolier of spare ammo. Ripper fed a belt into a portable railgun, gears whining. They exchanged a nod and headed to the second drop pod, weapons ready, waiting. Ghost crawled through the maze of ducts. At every junction he planted an EMP charge, each one secured with a muffled click. Gary's voice crackled in his ear, tinny and tense. Ghost kept moving. Motion sensors, disabled. Laser grids, jammed. Automated turrets, confused and spinning. He reached the control center, peering through the grate at the guards below. Ghost dropped from the vent, striking with ruthless precision. Necks snapped, windpipes crushed, bodies crumpled. He tapped his comm. "Internal sensors are down, boss. You're clear to proceed." Gary and Ripper braced as their pod blasted free. It streaked toward the fortress, a missile aimed at the hangar. The weakened defenses crumbled. Metal shrieked. Alarms howled. The pod smashed through the final barrier and skidded across the deck, plowing through Zorgath soldiers. The hatch blew and the two humans emerged, wreathed in smoke and spitting fire. The air flashed crimson as their weapons roared, scything through the aliens. They pushed forward, an unstoppable force. Ripper's shotgun boomed, turning enemies to mist. Gary's rifle spat plasma, melting armor and flesh. Grenades detonated in rippling waves of shrapnel. They fought their way deeper, following Tech's nav points. The holding cells lay ahead. They stacked up, ready to breach. The door shattered inward. Gary and Ripper stormed through, sweeping the room. But the cell was empty. A flickering hologram appeared, the Zorgath leader sneering at them. "You're too late, humans. The princess is mine, and now so are you." The image wavered and vanished. In its place, a countdown blinked to life, red digits spinning down. The voice of the Zorgath leader echoed through the room, cold and mocking. "You have 5 minutes before this station, and everything on it is vaporized. I suggest you run." Gary cursed, realizing they'd been lured into a trap. The timer hit 4:59, then 4:58, the numbers plummeting with terrible speed. The fortress shuddered, ancient machinery groaning to life beneath their feet. Gary slammed a fresh power cell into his rifle as he and Ripper sprinted through the shuddering fortress. Explosions tore through the structure, walls crumbling and floors buckling. Ripper kicked a door open, and they barreled into the hangar, only to skid to a halt. Their drop pod lay in a twisted heap smashed beyond repair, and surrounding it a battalion of heavily armed Zorgath shock troopers. "Fuck!" Ripper snarled, raising his gun. But before they could open fire, Ghost's voice crackled over the comm. "Boss, there's a Zorgath fighter prepped for launch in the hangar. Port side, 2 o'clock. I'll guide you through the startup." Gary's head snapped around and he spotted it, a sleek, deadly-looking ship bristling with weapons. "Copy that, Ghost. We're Oscar Mike. Ripper, suppressing fire." Ripper's gun roared as he laid down a hail of bullets, forcing the Zorgath to duck for cover. Gary and Ripper sprinted for the fighter, plasma bolts sizzling past them. They leapt into the cockpit, and the canopy slammed shut. "Ghost now!" Gary barked. Lights flashed across the console as Ghost overrode the system. The engines surged to life with a rising whine. Gary grabbed the controls and wrenched the ship into the air. The landing gear snapped free as the fighter rocketed out of the hangar. And not a moment too soon. The fortress collapsed in on itself with a thunderous boom, a blinding fireball consuming everything inside. The shockwave slammed into the fighter, nearly knocking it into a spin. Gary wrestled with the controls, fighting to stabilize their trajectory. "Strap in, Ripper. This is going to be a rough ride." Ripper locked his harness as Gary punched the thrusters. The stolen ship shot into the starry void, engines screaming, but their escape was short-lived. A swarm of Zorgath fighters rose up from the moon's surface like angry hornets, laser cannons spitting crimson death. The ship shuddered as the barrage stuck its shields. Warning klaxons blared. Gary wrenched the ship into a barrel roll, narrowly evading a volley of missiles. Ripper swung the rear turret around and opened up, his streams of tracer rounds stitching glowing lines across the void. The Zorgath ships broke formation, swooping in for the kill. Gary jinked and juked, dodging and twisting, the ship groaning under the strain. The dogfight raged across the stars, a deadly dance of laser fire and shrapnel. Ripper whooped as his shots found their mark, blasting a pursuer into a cloud of shrapnel. But for each ship destroyed, two more took its place. They were badly outnumbered and outgunned. Just as the enemy ships closed in for the kill, Tech's excited shout filled the cockpit. "Boss, I intercepted a transmission. The Princess, she's on that moon below in a hidden base." Gary felt a savage grin split his face. His blood sang with the thrill of impending violence. "Then take us in, Ripper. We're getting our girl back." Ripper gunned the engines, the ship plummeting towards the pitted surface below. "Hold on to your ass, boss. This landing's going to be rough." The fighter screamed over the barren plains, whipping between towering stone spires. The Zorgath ships clung to their tail, lasers peppering the ground around them. Ripper jinked hard, nearly scraping the canyon walls. The move caught their pursuers off guard. They swerved wildly to avoid a collision, slamming into each other in a spectacular explosion. But there was no time to celebrate. As they rounded a cliff, a monstrous shape rose from the ground ahead. A cannon glowing with eldritch energy, its barrel aimed right at them. Gary's eyes widened as he saw the telltale flicker of its firing sequence powering up. They had seconds before it unleashed its devastating payload. "Evasive maneuvers!" he roared, wrenching the stick hard to the left. The fighter careened wildly as Ripper slapped the throttle into overdrive. The cannon's muzzle flashed a blinding white, and a torrent of destruction erupted from its barrel, searing towards them with terrible speed. The beam clipped their wing, alarms shrieking as the shields collapsed. The fighter spun like a leaf in a hurricane, spiraling towards the unforgiving rock below. Ripper slammed his fist on the console, firing a salvo of missiles at the energy cannon. The projectiles streaked through the air and impacted in a blinding flash. A massive shockwave erupted outwards, the ground heaving and buckling. The fighter spun out of control, alarms blaring. It sliced through the base's outer wall and skidded across the floor in a shower of sparks and shrapnel before screeching to a smoking halt. Gary kicked the crumpled hatch open and clambered out, Ripper on his heels. Smoke stung their eyes and choked their lungs. Zorgath soldiers poured into the hangar, energy rifles crackling. The two humans dove for cover, trading fire from behind twisted chunks of metal. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, the sharp tang of ozone mixing with the acrid stench of burning circuitry. Gary and Ripper leapfrogged forward, one laying down suppressing fire while the other advanced. They blasted through bulkheads and ricocheted down corridors, leaving a trail of smouldering Zorgath corpses in their wake. At last they reached the heart of the base. Princess Fenris stood tall and defiant before the looming form of the Zorgath leader. Her golden hair was matted with blood, her clothes torn, but her eyes blazed with unconquered spirit. The warlord laughed, his cybernetic eye glinting cruelly in the harsh light. "You're too late," he sneered. "The princess has already served her purpose. The Nigean secrets are mine, and soon the galaxy will be too." His clawed hand stabbed a button on his gauntlet. A hidden portal flared to life, a swirling maelstrom of light and shadow. Howling winds tore at Gary and Fenris, the vortex pulling them in with irresistible force. They strained against the inexorable pull, muscles burning, bones creaking. Ripper saw their plight. He knew what had to be done. With a roar of defiance, he charged at the Zorgath leader and crashed into him with bone-crushing force. They grappled, a whirling blur of fists and fury as the portal's event horizon yawned before them. Locked in combat, Ripper and the warlord tumbled into the seething vortex. The anomaly flashed blinding white, reality rippling and fracturing. Then it collapsed with a thunderous boom, leaving only emptiness behind. Gary staggered to his feet, ears ringing, head pounding. Fenris knelt beside him, her face a mask of shock and grief. The base was a blasted ruin, twisted metal and shattered stone, and Ripper was gone, vanished into the howling void. Numb and battered, the two survivors picked their way back to the Shadow Blade. Ghost and Tech were waiting, faces tight with worry that turned to dismay at the sight of their comrades. As the ship lifted off, Fenris turned to Gary, gratitude and sorrow warring in her eyes. "Your friend gave his life to save us," she said softly. "I won't let his sacrifice be in vain. I will use what I've learned to help my people, to make sure no one else suffers under the Zorgath's cruelty." Gary's fists clenched, knuckles white against the torn and bloodied fabric of his gloves. He gave a sharp nod, his next words a solemn vow. "And we'll be there to help you, every step of the way. The Zorgath may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." The Shadow Blade tore through the star-strewn darkness, engines howling a dirge for the fallen. Nijan space lay ahead, a battered people in need of hope. Gary and his team would bring them that hope, no matter the cost. For in the face of cruelty and oppression, the indomitable human spirit would always rise, bloodied but unbroken. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.